Leadership during tough times. Today we're going to talk about acute stress response. My name is Marie-Louise and I'm the owner of a company called ML Consultants. Over the past 24 years, we have been providing corporate training, executive coaching, and strategic planning sessions for companies throughout Africa. Just as a disclaimer, each one of our sessions is based on our interpretation of leadership, behavioral, and learning theories and principles. For more information about our company, you can click on the link below this video. Today we are going to talk about something called acute stress response. Within 3 months, the world as we know it has changed completely. And I do not even think that we realize the impact it will have on the next generations. I don't think for 1 minute that we thought that we would experience something like this. A virus called COVID-19. An unseen enemy that has now changed our life forever. It will change the way that we interact with people. It will change the way that we behave towards each other. And it's definitely going to change the way that we lead people. This session is going to deal specifically with acute stress response. When I ask people, what do you think is your purpose in life? I often get answers like, to ensure that my children are educated, to live a good life, to spread the word of God. Correct. That is the rational answer. But the mind and the body has been created for one thing and one thing only, and that is for survival. You cannot educate your children. You cannot spread the word of God. You cannot have a good life, basically, if you are dead. When we look at survival, we look at survival on different levels. The first level is the physical level, and according to our brains and our bodies, the most important part, because without your body, you cannot do anything else. The second level of survival is emotional survival. It is the ability to be happy and not to have to live in fear and anger all the time. The third level of survival is mental survival. And this is where we would like to be recognized for who we are as people and the way that we think about things without being criticized. Even though there are different levels, the body will react as if you are in physical danger. It does not understand the difference between physical, mental, and emotional danger. Because the brain and the body is one, it will work together to ensure your physical safety first. And how will that work? Well, when you are under extreme stress, your endocrine system will switch on, your nervous system will switch on, and it will release different hormones and neurotransmitters to ensure your ultimate survival. An important hormone that gets released during acute stress is called cortisol. And we're going to focus on the negative aspect of cortisol. So its purpose is to focus your attention on the threat. And it does so by making you feel bad. It will affect the way that your body feels. It will affect the way that you react to things emotionally. And very interesting, it's going to stop your thinking brain. So the purpose of it is to motivate you to retreat from the threat. And it does that by curbing functions that is not needed. And one of them is the function of your prefrontal cortex. Let's just have a look at what excess cortisol in your body can do. And make no mistake, we are all going to have excess cortisol in our bodies. COVID-19 is not just going to end in 2-3 weeks. It's going to have a lasting impact on our stress hormones for the next 2 years. So some of the problems that you will experience is digestive problems, headaches. There will be more heart disease because people will go into panic and anxiety attacks. People are currently struggling and will be struggling with sleep problems. And quite interesting is that this is not the time to want to lose weight. Your body will hang on to your weight as it believes that you are in a state of stress and that you need the extra food. Let's have a look at the impact it has got on your brain. Well, something of interest is that there will be memory and concentration impairment. My mother, for example, because of acute stress, will drive somewhere and then she'll forget how to get there. She will have to phone us and say she doesn't know where she is and can we give her directions on how to get where she wanted to be. Anxiety, which will of course lead to many of the problems that we saw earlier. And then ultimately we will suffer from depression. That we will explain more in the next session when we look at fight or flight. One of the more interesting aspects of cortisol is it's going to affect the executive brain. Now the reason is that when you go into acute stress, your body believes that it needs to survive physically. Now the human brain takes up 20% of your energy, which according to the cortisol is energy that is not needed at this stage. The cortisol believes that you are going to need it to survive physically. And what it will do is will specifically shut off functions in your prefrontal cortex, or functions that we call executive thinking. Let's look at these functions in more detail. One of them is called cognitive control of behavior. It is where you think about what you do. And at this stage, it has become very difficult. Emotionally, your hormones that gets released is so strong. And at this stage, I find I cry at the drop of a hat, and I've become a bit of a drama queen. A few months ago, I would have thought about it and thought, no, come on, this is not as serious as what you are making it out to be, or there must be another way of thinking about it. But because of the release of cortisol, there seems to be very little control over the way that I am behaving. One of the great executive functions that we have in the brain is the behavior that we need to achieve goals. And that behavior is all about planning and organizing and structuring what we need to do in order to achieve our goals. Be it something as simple as sticking to an exercise routine, or more difficult, thinking about how I've got to change my business to survive in the future. What an excess of cortisol will do, because it's an executive function, is cut that off. And suddenly, something as simple as sticking to a routine to exercise will become very difficult. An excess of cortisol will also affect our brain function that focuses on what is important at this time. What do I need to pay attention to? So what do we need to pay attention to is looking at different ways of achieving our goals. But the body will take that away and it will say the only thing that you've got to pay attention to is your basic survival needs: food, water, and shelter. Secondly, it's going to affect our working memory, where it would be easy for you to remember facts and figures. It's now going to become more difficult, as it is not important for your survival to remember how to do things. In the past, it would have been easy for us to look at the opinions of others and think it through. At this stage, we are not going to be able to do that, not as easily as what we used to. We are going to stick to what we believe is true and what will get us through it. So our flexibility in thinking is definitely compromised. Two other functions that will be impaired at the moment is our ability to plan and to solve problems. Your brain does not believe that it's important to your survival, even though now it is more important than ever. So where we would tell people, think about your future, there must be different ways of doing it. Their brains won't be able to do that because it's going to take up too much of the energy. And according to your body, that energy is more important to make you survive physically. Something of interest is that researchers have found that during times of stress, that the cortisol levels of managers tend to be lower than those of their employees. And the reason is quite simple. You are still actively trying to be involved in the company. So even if we are currently in lockdown, a lot of managers are working from home, trying to think about what are we going to do when we get back to work. The fact that you are using your executive brain automatically lowers your cortisol. But I need you to understand that it is not the same with your employees. Let's look a bit more in detail on what is your role as a leader. Well, I think the most important role at this stage is to understand that you and your employees are experiencing stress differently. For them, it is much more difficult, especially if they are not seen as an essential service. Make them feel essential by communicating with them, telling them how important they are, and that you are doing everything in your power to ensure that when things get back to normal, which most probably is not going to happen overnight, that they will be part of your team. Being a leader is already a difficult task. Being a leader in difficult times, even more so. And even though your cortisol levels are less than your employees, it is becoming essential that you keep them as low as possible so that your executive functions work properly. Your job as a leader is to ensure that you keep your cortisol levels as low as possible. And unfortunately, there's no easy way to do it. I'm not going to discuss these in detail, but keep them in mind. Get the right amount of sleep. Exercise, but not too much, as that can put added stress on your body. Eat correctly, which basically means stay away from junk food and sugar. Learn to recognize your triggers so that you can avoid them or put plans in place to deal with them. Learn to relax, laugh, maintain healthy relationships, take care of yourself, and help others. During this time, you need to provide your employees with high direction. And please understand this clearly. This is not autocratic behavior. High direction means you need to set plans in place. This is what we're going to do. This is the outcome, and this is how we're going to achieve it together as a team. You need to be very clear when you communicate so that there's no room for failure and setting your employees up for failure. Focus on facts and not opinions. Also, if there are people that are spreading false rumors or that are negative, stop them in their tracks immediately. Tell people clearly what do you expect from them and what the outcome needs to look like. Give clear instructions about what needs to be done. At this stage, you need to be very clear on what do you want from your people and what it will look like. You also need to give high support. And what do we mean by that? As a leader, you need to now continuously assess your employees' mental state. Put systems in place that can help your employees deal with stress. This is the time where they need to learn new skills. Think about doing coaching sessions or setting up a forum when people can talk about their stress. Give clear, unbiased feedback on how they are performing and which areas they need to focus on. Also, give a lot of feedback. People need to have the sense that you are noticing what they are doing. And very important, be visible. Do not sit in your office and hope that people will come to you. This is the time where you need to go to your employees. There's a beautiful saying that says, it's not stress that kills us, it is our reaction to it. And as a leader, you need to assist your people to react to stress in a more proactive way. Over the next few sessions, we will look at specific ways that you can help achieve a less stressful environment.